So, with the changes to 9.20.1, the changes to the personal missions, the campaign, I found myself hopping into Arty to try and pick up some secondaries. I've completed most of the primary missions for Arty on all four campaign tanks, so hopped into Arty once again to pick up some secondaries. I was low on credits. Figured I could earn a lot of money by going back and doing missions on secondaries, but so I'm playing a rare game in the M40, M43, and I'm looking for Arty tracer shells because, you know, killing enemy Arty is my favorite thing to do while I'm playing Arty. So looking at the usual spots, waiting for a tracer shell, but sometimes it is Christmas. Sometimes you get much more than you bargain for. So looking for shots, looking for tracers. So there should be one anytime around now. There we go. So there's one tracer. And as I'm aiming, there's another tracer. So there are two Arty in this position. So, yeah, cool guys don't look at explosions, but take out the GW Panther on the enemy team. But not only did we spot one tracer, but there are two of the little buggers there. I know I shouldn't be complaining about Arty because I'm in one, but really, my biggest joy playing Arty in this game is killing enemy Arty. I don't know. What does that say about me? I have no idea. So we saw a second tracer shell. Ah, yes. So, I've been playing the Crusader 5.5-inch SP recently, and I hate the fact I can't counter Arty in it because the penetration is so low, splash damage is so low, so playing a proper Arty with proper penetration, proper damage. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, this was nice. This was so nice. But anyway, let's get on with today's video. Hi folks, and welcome to the Ace Tanker for the FV4202, the Tier 8 British Premium Medium, although when I first got this tank it was the Tier 10 British Medium, and I aced it when it was a Tier 10 British Medium, but yeah, there were rumours, even when I was playing it, that it was going to be replaced by a version of the Chieftain, but they were just rumours because it was eventually replaced by the Centurion Action 10. Now, when it was replaced, it was moved to Tier 8 Premium status, pretty much. It was downgraded in every way possible. It was moved to Tier 8 and it was given out as a reward tank to those who had had it at Tier 10. It was also a tank that was available as a reward tank for completing missions once upon a time, I believe. I believe a lot of players got it that way. And it's been in the gift shop. I believe it's still in the gift shop, actually. So yeah, you can pick this tank up. But it is a Tier 8 Premium these days, and it was replaced by the Centurion Action 10, much like it was in real life, actually. But anyhow, I originally aced this tank when it was a Tier 10. Now, I didn't play it very much as a Tier 8 because it was awful. It was terrible. It was the worst Tier 8 premium tank ever, but it did receive some buffs in 9.17. It also received more buffs in 9.17.1, and it received even more buffs most recently in patch 9.20.1. So on a recent ×5 event, I popped into it to try it out and see what the tank was like these days with all the buffs, because when I tried playing it originally as a Tier 8, it was horrible. I didn't like it, and I just never got around to playing it, but ×5 gave me an opportunity to pop into it once again and give it a go and see how the buffs worked out. So the history begins in the early 1950s when Britain were looking to replace the Centurion. Now, the Centurion was a World War II design, but it arrived a few months too late for World War II. So they had a few choices. Britain could stick with the Centurion and continue to upgrade it, or they could replace it with a completely new tank. So with that in mind, two projects began, the FV4201 and the FV4202. Now, the FV201 was a completely new tank designed from the ground up, and it would eventually become the Chieftain about 10 years later. But the FV4202 was a reimagining of the Centurion, and it was basically a Centurion, but it would be smaller, it would be lighter, it would use much more sloped armor. You can see that the sloped armor on the front of the hull here is much more pronounced than it normally is on British tanks, so they could reduce the armor but increase the sloping in order to make it equivalent armor to the what the Centurion was was using at the time. And as well as that, as well as being a smaller Centurion, it would maintain the firepower of the Centurion by using the 20-pounder as well. Now, while the FV4201 was still in design phase, it was still a paper tank, the FV4202 was far more advanced. It was not only designed, but 3 prototypes were built by the mid-1950s. The hull was, as I say, was based on the Centurion, but it was lower and it was smaller, or it was much shorter. So it was about 1/4 of a meter shorter than the Centurion was, and it was also a much shorter hull. You could see 5 road wheels here, and the Centurion used 6, so they were able to cut down on the height and the length of the tank. The turret was based on a Centurion Action 10. Now, the Action 10 was one of the upgraded Centurions. It was developed in 1955, and the turret for the FV4202 was based on the Centurion Action X turret, but it wasn't identical. The armor wasn't quite as good as the turret that was designed for the Action X, but in design it was pretty similar. So anyway, this was fine, but in 1956 a Soviet T-54A was captured in Hungary, and that led to the development of the 105mm L7 gun. Now, NATO had been using 90mm and 20-pounders, and they weren't powerful enough for the new Soviet armor, and this basically led to the upgrading of pretty much all the tanks across Europe to be able to use 105mm guns. Now, while the FV4201 was still on paper, it was very easy to upgrade the gun. The Centurions, they received the 105mm, and that basically, even though they were planning to replace them in the 1950s, the Centurions with the 105mm continued to be upgraded, and they remained in service for about 20 more years. And then we had the FV4202, which, as I say, only 3 prototypes were built, but these were prototypes that were designed with the 20-pounder in mind, and the armor just wasn't good enough against these new Soviet tanks. The gun wasn't good enough against the new Soviet tanks, and as a result, basically, it was discontinued. The project was discontinued with just the 3 prototypes being built. So that's pretty much it. Now, in-game, I'm not going to go into a lot of details and go into Tank Compare or Tanks GG or show you armor profiles or anything else, because it's a premium tank and I'm going to have to review it eventually. But to cut a long story short, it was a terrible tank. It really was. It was one of the reasons I didn't play it. When it was first introduced as a premium, it was absolutely awful, but because of the buffs, it's now got a top speed of 50 kilometers an hour. That used to be 35 kilometers an hour, so the 50 kilometers an hour, very good. The power to weight ratio used to be just over 12 horsepower to ton. Now it's upwards of around 15.5, almost 16 horsepower to ton ratio. So the power to weight ratio is much better than it was. The gun handling and accuracy are pretty good on the tank. Some of the other premiums are slightly better, but it's still very good. It's got extremely good penetration, as you can see, for a premium tank at 226, 230 damage. The premium ammunition gets you up to 258 and 230 damage. So yeah, the penetration extremely good for a premium tank. The hull armor still isn't great. When the buffs for this tank for 920.1 were announced, the hull armor was originally going to be buffed, and then they decided not to buff the hull armor. They only buffed the turret armor. But the turret armor is very good. It gets up to around 200mm, slightly more than 200mm, depending on the angle you hit it. But the hull armor, not very good. The DPM, still absolutely awful. It's always had bad DPM, and the DPM hasn't been buffed, so DPM is still terrible. So essentially, it's got good turret armor, bad hull armor, but it does get 10 degrees of gun depression, so you can go hull down, you can use its gun depression, and the turret armor is even better. So essentially, it's a support tank. It is a sniper. It's best from medium to long ranges. It's not a very good brawler, especially when you're up against higher tier tanks, because the DPM just isn't there and the hull armor isn't there. But as I say, from medium to long range and hull down, it's actually okay. It is much better than it was. And here we go. So Fisherman's Bay, we're top tier, 3 tier 8s on either side, 1 arty, so not a lot to worry about here. and we can play it a little bit more aggressively. So you can see that we've already reached our top speed, even though we're going slightly uphill. So the power to weight ratio was improved, the top speed was improved, and the turret armor is very, very good. The aim time is pretty good on the tank. The accuracy is very good if you let it aim fully in, but the rate of fire is not great for the alpha damage you do. The premium ammunition, while we're getting into position here, is also pretty good. 258mm of penetration with 230 damage. And then a couple of HE shells, yeah, just for those occasions where you meet lightly armored targets. But anyway, we've moved up here. I'm going to set up an ambush, maybe get a shot into this T-37 if he crosses my line of sight. He's disappeared. No, here he goes. And there we get a nice shot in. So 245. We've reduced him by about a third of his health. Yeah, not going to get another shot there, but yeah, there is RT in play, so I'm being a little bit careful, and you know, even in a tier 10 game I would have moved into this position, but I'm going to shoot targets as they're presenting themselves, but in my mind I'm top tier, and that means I can be a little bit more aggressive. You can see that the accuracy firing before being fully aimed, we take a chunk out of the side of the building there, but aim, and we can start going to work on this Sherman Jumbo. Now, even though that's a very well armored tier 6, I'm a tier 8, and the penetration on this gun is very, very good as we take more chunks out of houses. So I can go through the frontal armor on this guy even as he's angled, shooting down on his upper front plate, so get some more damage done. Now we're going to work here, but as I say, in my mind, I'm top tier. I'm waiting for enemy tanks to appear. I'm trying to see where the enemy team have gone. So there are a lot of tanks down in town. We've got a lot of tanks facing them, but yeah, I'm just being a little bit too passive. I want to keep my gun shooting. I want to keep doing damage. And I'm not being spotted, so... Oh, auto-aimed accidentally there, but alright. Missed out on a kill maybe because I auto-aimed. Alright, KB2. So the Sherman Jumbo's a one-hit kill, KB2 is a two-hit kill for me. And we're just going to advance because, as I say, I'm top tier. That's a Tiger 2. Looks to be a stock turret to me. So we're going to move down. Yeah, definitely a stock turret. So get a nice shot in, track him in place. We bounce because we've got decent armor as top tier. We can track him in place again. And just do a little bit of side scraping now. So, oh, Sherman Jumbo. Side scraping the Tiger. Tiger's a better opportunity or better target to hit because he's higher tier. The Jumbo's using a derp gun, but we take very, very little damage. Well, actually, he did 155. That's pretty reasonable. But we can just take him out. And as I say, when you're playing top tier, you can be a little bit more aggressive. Ooh, KB2, KB2. Back, back, back. Okay, so KB2, thankfully, didn't do that much damage to me, just tracked me. Because for some reason, the KB2 is firing AP. So that was a little bit lucky. Alright, KB2's firing AP. That's good to know. And we can sneak a shot in here in the M6. So we're up to 2.5k damage already, so you can see that once you do start firing this gun, as long as you can keep it firing, you can do damage. But these are tier 6s and I'm not too worried. I mean, I'm still on pretty much full health, so I'm just going to move up, put a shot into the M6. Okay, KB2 puts a big, big hit into me for 427, because now the KB2 is now firing HE. Oh, maybe he fired HE previously, I don't know, but anyway, we can put a shot in here, we can be aggressive. Even though our rate of fire is not amazing, we can get to the rear of the KB2, take him out before he fires again, but someone else beats me to it, so, alright, not great. Now, I should point out, when I was playing this game, I was sick. I had a head cold, I had a chest cold, I could barely talk. I'm still not over it, by the way. I'm still not over it. I'm still got my cough, but definitely feeling a lot better than I was a few days ago. But anyway, we're moving up. So we're on 3k damage, and I mean, I haven't done anything here. I don't think I've looked at the mini-map very much, because as I say, I was playing while I was ill. But we're going to move up, see if we can get any more damage done. T-28 prototypes in the field. A lot of TDs on the enemy team, so I want to be careful. I don't want to move within view range or render range of enemy tanks who might be camping spawn. So we're trying to use our gun depression, 10 degrees gun depression, trying to go hull down, but really, there hasn't been very much opportunity to play this tank to its strengths because, as I say, it's top tier. You can be a brawler. Even though this is a support tank, you can play it more aggressively. You can play it as a heavy, as a brawler, but you definitely don't want to do that against tier 9s. You definitely don't want to do it against tier 10s. So, Alright, we put a shot into the Hellcat, and we may have hit our blind shot, I'm not sure, but I'm going to poke out, try and track the T-28 prototype, miss my track shot. So he's in the open. And we got our track shot that time. So track him, getting assistance damage. And yeah, put another shot in, make sure he stays tracked, kill him. So there we go, there's kill number 3. We're up to 3.8k damage. Very, very quickly. 3 tanks left on the enemy team. 2 of them were spotted on the 1 line. Oh, and there's the IKV. We don't have much to shoot at. And he gets 1 hit killed by our KV2. So yeah, even though the tank has received a better top speed, better power to weight ratio, I think we almost bounced that shot. Am I going to get another shot? You can see the rate of fire is not amazing. He gets taken out as well. So both enemy tanks get taken out. So not the fastest tank, not the most mobile, but it's a heck of a lot better than it used to be. So first ace in the FV4202 since it became a tier 8. It's not as if I was trying. I didn't play it. This tank was just awful. Horrible tier 8 premium tank when it became a tier 8 premium tank. But with all the buffs it's received recently, it's gone from probably being the worst tier 8 premium to not quite the worst. I don't know. I'd need to look at all the stats. So it's still not an amazing tank, but it actually does have a place in the game now. The turret armor, big improvement. The top speed and power to weight ratios, big improvements. DPM still lacks and the hull armor isn't great, and when you get it into higher tier games, I don't think it's an amazing tank, but you have the ability maybe now to bounce higher tier tanks if you can get into a hull down position and use your gun depression. But yeah, as I say, ×5 event, I decided to pop in, see what the tank was like now that it's received all its buffs, and I was quite surprised. I didn't hate the tank, so yeah, I don't know whether I'd regret it, or, whether I can recommend it, but we'll find out. I'll hop into it, spend a day in it when I'm planning to do a review. But picked up Ace, picked up High Caliber, finished top on XP with 1369, which I was surprised about because I was top tier. Wasn't a very difficult game, and I said I played this game while I was sick, so yeah, I wasn't paying much attention to the minimap, but I was top tier, and as a top tier, while this is not a brawler, it's more of a support tank. When you're top tier, you can play it as a brawler, you can play it almost like a heavy tank. You can go in and you can basically eat up lower tiers, and that's pretty much what that game was. But as I say, I'm surprised the XP was so high, because usually when you're top tier you get less XP for shooting lower tier tanks, so I was quite surprised the XP total was quite so high. But happy with the damage. Could have done with a few more kills, but not terrible. So 24 shots, 18 hits and 18 pens. The penetration on the gun is good enough to pen, especially when you're shooting similar tier, lower tier tanks, but accuracy let me down a little bit, hit a couple of walls, did a little bit of redecorating on buildings around the town, on the edge of the town at the beginning of the game. But other than that, you can build up the damage. Spotted 1, damaged 8, destroyed 3, did 1483 assistance damage, so I was spotting enemy tanks. And as you can see here, without needing to fire any premium, and with the penetration on this gun, even when you're facing tier 9s, you don't need to switch to a lot of premium either. But ammo cost relatively cheap. 24 shots only came to 4,000 credits, and 127,000 credits profit with a premium account means that this is a decent moneymaker. I mean, if you can do damage in this tank, you can play it to its strengths, you can earn a lot of credits with this. So it was a ×5, the only reason I decided to hop into the tank, and as a result of this game, I was quite happy to have hopped into it. Ages since I last played it because I just hated it, but and now I think it's okay. I think it is okay. So I'm relatively happy with the ×5, leaving me on almost 10.5k XP. Nice crew training. So yeah, I don't think it's an amazing tier 8 premium, but at least it can hold its own against a lot of the other tanks now. So it's not the worst, I will say that. It definitely doesn't feel like the worst tier 8 premium, medium that is. But anyway, there you go. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.